This is like a story that totally shook an entire university and really makes you think about safety around us. So Hayley Anderson, she was a nursing student at Binghamton, super friendly and full of life. She also worked at a hospital out on Long Island. But on March 8th, 2018, her life was tragically cut short. This happened just outside the university campus, and the circumstances point to a violent death, which kicked off a huge investigation. Today, we're diving into this tragedy, how that night went down, the one that took Hayley from us, and how her memory forever changed the university. Stick around till the end, because this story is brutal, shocking, and really makes you pause and think about every single moment of your life. So Hayley was born on May 9th, 1995, and she was the youngest of two daughters. She grew up in Westbury, about 200 miles southeast of the university, way closer to New York City. She lived there with her dad, Gordon, her mum, Karen, and her older sister, Melon. Hayley was known for her sense of humour and her generally upbeat, fun personality. She was hardworking, loved music, and genuinely cared about everyone she knew. So it's no surprise she made lots of friends and wasn't afraid to speak her mind. By 2013, it was time for Hayley to start her independent life and head off to college. I mean, for her parents, it was definitely tough, but, eventually everyone has to go their own way. Being such a caring and compassionate young woman, Hayley naturally chose to study nursing. Later that year, she enrolled at Binghamton University to start a 5-year nursing program. It seemed like Hayley also really appreciated the little joys in life. She knew how to make a great cup of coffee. And while in school, she worked at Jasmine's Cafe on campus. Of course, that was just temporary while she studied, because she already had a job lined up after graduation at Northwell Health, working in the emergency department. As a confident young woman, Hayley started Orlando in her life. It's unclear whether they were just friends or if something more continued, but her friends could see that they were still spending time together. Tragically, this would eventually lead to the absolute worst possible ending. By this point, graduation was coming up and Hayley was in her last months of college, and like many seniors, she was probably feeling that mix of emotions, sadness, but also excitement for the next chapter of her life. The night Hayley spent that night was like totally normal at first. She stayed in with a few friends, popped open a bottle of wine, and they played board games late into the night. She hung out with them most of the evening and into the early morning, but around 3 a.m, she decided to go meet Orlando. Their movements were captured by a security camera on a neighbouring house. Hayley drove to his off-campus apartment, and at 3:15 a.m, they went inside together. What exactly happened over the next few hours isn't fully known, but tragically, that's when Hayley was strangled to death. The assumption is that Orlando killed her out of jealousy. Like, if she couldn't be with him, then she couldn't be with anyone. Around 7 hours later, at 10:48 a.m, a camera caught Orlando leaving the apartment alone. A few minutes later, he came back with packages of melatonin and Zil, both sleep aids. And as it would later become clear, his intentions were anything but innocent. A few hours after that, he was spotted again going into the basement, probably where he found some metal hooks before returning upstairs. Then Orlando wrote a note in Spanish that said, "I never imagined I would do this. Sorry, Dad. See you soon." His father had passed away a few years prior, so it was obvious Orlando meant some sort of reunion with him, whether in heaven or, well, elsewhere. It's believed that he tried to screw the hooks into the doorframe and attempted to hang himself using his own tie, but due to either an accident or cruel irony, he fell and hit his head. There was blood found in the hallway, but somehow Orlando survived. Instead of trying again, he changed his plan. That's when he packed his things, wrapped his head, and headed straight to JFK International Airport. From there, he flew back home to Nicaragua, hoping to completely avoid the police forever. Meanwhile, Hayley's friends were growing more and more worried. Using the Find My Friends app, they eventually traced her to Orlando's apartment. The lights were off, his car wasn't in the driveway, and they decided to climb in through a window. Tragically, that's when they found her lifeless body. Even though people wondered where Orlando was, he had already vanished. When officers arrived at the scene, they secured the entire area, but there was this one weird and chilling detail. It wasn't actually the first time the police had visited that house that day. After Hayley's murder, Orlando had sent a message to his sister saying he had done something terrible and that he was a disgrace to the family. Naturally worried, his sister called the police to check on him, but when an officer knocked and got silence, they just left. Of course, Binghamton police came back a few hours later, this time with information about a lifeless body in his apartment. But by the time they could connect the dots and identify Orlando as a suspect in Hayley's death, he had already left the country.
We are learning new details today about the man wanted for questioning in the suspicious death of a Binghamton University student. Police identify him as Orlando Tercero. He is also a Binghamton nursing student and the ex-boyfriend of 22-year-old Hayley Anderson. Police found Anderson's body on Friday at an off-campus home. They want to question Tercero, but say he fled to Nicaragua before authorities found her body.
All right, so here's where our story gets a bit more complicated compared to other murder cases. See, if a suspect is caught in the same country where the crime happened, they can be tried under that country's laws. If not, most countries have extradition agreements to handle suspects who try to flee. But it really depends on the relationship between the countries. In Orlando's case, Nicaragua doesn't have an extradition treaty with the US, so technically he was free to roam. He had dual citizenship and didn't Okay, so here's where it gets intense. At first, Orlando was supposed to spend some time in a psychiatric hospital after another suicide attempt. But once the doctors cleared him for transfer, he was moved to the Directorate of Judicial Assistance, known as El Chipote, in Managua. The US initially requested that Nicaragua extradite Orlando so he could face second-degree murder charges in New York, which carries a minimum of 25 years to life. But unfortunately, Nicaragua denied the request, which obviously devastated Haley's family and friends. Instead, they announced that Orlando would be tried in his own country. He was charged with the murder of a woman, a femicide, which, by the way, isn't recognized as a crime in the US. Femicide is typically defined as the intentional killing of a woman by a male aggressor, and motives can vary widely. In Orlando's case, the motive was jealousy. After he got close to Haley, he refused to let her go, and those suppressed emotions eventually turned violent. During the trial, Haley's mother and friends testified that Orlando was obsessive and controlling. They said he wouldn't leave her alone, often yelled at her, and even slashed her car tires. Investigators concluded that he likely killed Haley out of jealousy, realizing she would never belong to him alone. This was backed up by multiple reports of his possessive behavior. The final forensic report confirmed that Haley died from asphyxiation due to neck compression in Orlando's apartment. Thanks to security camera footage, it was nearly indisputable that he was the one who killed her. But Orlando seemed to have his own attitude about the trial. Even while being guarded by officers with AK-47 seconds, he appeared indifferent, disheveled, and unnervingly calm about everything happening around him. He even claimed that at the time of Haley's death, he was crazy from all the alcohol he had consumed that night. Like, alcohol-induced craziness was totally supposed to be a valid excuse, according to him. Orlando said he couldn't remember killing Haley and was probably in a trance during her death. But when asked if anything like this had happened before or after that night, he couldn't provide any proof. Surprisingly, many of his school friends in Nicaragua didn't believe he killed Haley. To them, he was just a kind, caring guy who loved her, and they situation is mind-boggling. And his motive? Totally ridiculous. It was just plain obsessive jealousy. I really respect Haley's friends who broke into his apartment though. True friends always have each other's backs. They don't leave someone they care about in danger. So, friends, I think that wraps up today's video. Tell me, what do you think about this case? Do you think Haley's friends were right to break into Orlando's apartment? And what are your thoughts on the sentence in Nicaragua compared to what could have happened in the US? Thanks so much for sticking around until the end. I really appreciate your time. And in the meantime, remember, take care of yourselves, look out for each other, and stay safe. Thanks, and see you next time.